The 2024 G20 Summit's location in Brazil shines a spotlight on the imperative of protecting rainforests as a priority for climate action. Halting deforestation is an urgent need to preserve our planet's vital green lungs.
The Amazon rainforest is being destroyed. We are losing, on average, 1 million hectares per year.
It's not only about the rainforest, it's about everything else that's happening around the world as a whole.
We're living on one planet. Mother Earth has a lot of resources, but still there are limits to these resources.
It's all about political action, and it's all about having really a pressure on leaders to do the right thing.
A bird cannot launch its flight if the two wings are not in perfect harmony.
The rainforest is being deforested at a staggering rate. I've heard statistics ranging from 1 acre a second to 1 acre every 3 seconds. But either way, whether you say it's 1, 1, 1, or whether you say it's 1, 1, either way, those are terrifying and tragic statistics.
Nós estamos perdendo, em média, 1 milhão de hectares por ano.
We are losing on average 1 million hectares per year. This implies 1,000 billion trees, trillions of living beings, animals, and also ecological services. And a good part of it is being destroyed to meet the consumption of populations that live in the city, for the consumption of raw materials and products, and have no outlet for the Amazon.
E não tem saída para a Amazônia.
Religion is not separate from life. Religion is that which infuses and informs and inspires our life. It's our religions that give us our values, our ethics, our priorities, our way of understanding ourselves, the universe, our place in the universe, our place in communities. The Hindu tradition, for example, teaches us that we've been created not just by the Creator, but of the Creator, which means by definition that the creation itself, every human being, of every race, of every religion, of every color, of every creed, of every culture, is divine, which means we have to protect it, we have to preserve it, we have to serve it, and not only human beings, but all beings, all of creation, from all the animal species, to every drop of water, to every blade of grass, to every tree, every mountain. It has all been created of the Creator. And so it is sacred. So religion and faith must be that continues to guide us, to inspire us, to inform us, to teach us the protection of our natural environment, including and especially the Amazon rainforest, is a critical issue of responsibility and duty for human beings. And to the extent that that which we deem our human responsibility and our human duty, the extent to which that is dictated and informed by our faith tradition, by our religions absolutely guide us and teach us that we have to protect it, we have to preserve it.
E não existe uma religião ou crença.
There is no religion or belief that does not talk about human dignity, that does not talk about preserving the environment, that does not talk about harmony and coexistence, and that imbalance harms everyone.
The world is one country and mankind its citizens. If one single element of the system is in pain or is ill, the whole body suffers for it. And that is the condition that we see the world.
With regard to the rainforest specifically, there's so much that those of us who don't live in the rainforest can do to protect the rainforest. Why is it being deforested? In order to graze cattle that will then become hamburgers. The greatest contributor to the deforestation of the rainforest is actually the meat industry. So specifically, if you look at the rainforest, we're dealing with the destruction of that land, that sacred land that is providing oxygen to our planet, that is absorbing carbon dioxide, that is storing so much of the planet's water, and yet, just to satisfy the taste of those who have the luxury to choose, we are deforesting it. So regardless of what your religion is, whether it's a religion like Hinduism that is anchored in vegetarianism, or any religion, it's now the time for our faith traditions to really start ensuring that people eat consciously, choose consciously, live consciously.
We believe that the problem of the environmental or ecological crisis that we are facing nowadays, part of the crisis of morality, the moral issues, part of this, because the greedy people never feel enough with what they do to the natural resources. This is why the strategic role of the religious people, especially from the religious actors, really matters. Take voices by the religious actors to change their lifestyle, to change or transform their economic behaviors, to make it like in sustainability paradigm. And we can work together, not just to put them as our enemy or different entities, but we need the collaborations from the religious teaching, from the business sector, from the government who do or create the policies, and also from the intellectuals, youths, medias, and no one left behind for this. So the problem of the climate change will be worse. We know that this is not only the climate change, but also the climate crisis. When we try to just deny the situation or ignore the deforestation, which means that also we let the crisis happen getting worse day by day. By conserving the rainforest, we will make it slower, the situation of the climate crisis. Or we can just also try to restore the situation of the climate. The geopolitical situation also happen to be our external challenge for this movement. For instance, the local level, they also think how to make their economy higher with the natural resources, for instance. The national level, we have also to face the political dynamics based on the, supply chains, or from the international demand, from the other bilateral businesses, and something like that. So we need also to deal with that. That is also why we need also to do the advocacy on the national policymakers level, and also to convince the national and also the provincial that they work together with us as the partners, as their collaborator for the future of our generations, for the future of our countries. This is the homework that we need to also overcome day by day with the whole stakeholders that we have.
It is important to think of future generations, and we can learn from the indigenous wisdom, as I quoted, where they talk about the seventh generation. Any major issues or steps taken should bear in mind how it will affect 7 generations on. I like that very much. But it's also part of being hopeful about the serious implications for the climate science, what it's telling us, that we are at a very dangerous point where we only have a few years to make a difference. And how I like to describe that is that we're on the cusp of a wonderful, renewable energy, healthier, safer, fairer world. We're actually moving, and we're moving faster because we have the innovation, but we're not moving nearly fast enough for the science.
Caring about global environmental change is outside the wheelhouse if you're a nationally elected official. So it's not your problem. It's beyond your responsibility. But let's put the problem on the table. This problem threatens all of us, and it's going to take all of us coming together. So if we put the problem on the table, what might we be able to, let's brainstorm, what could we do about it? Forums like this, because it provides a safe space for informal dialogue, in this context, it's been very well discussed by the Brazilians that talk about how you have the deforestation and how it's impinging on indigenous people's habitat and how this is the lungs of the earth. And the Minister of the Environment last evening did an excellent job of talking about the need to stop the deforestation before we reach a tipping point that's so disruptive, because it's the lungs of the earth. If you get past a certain percentage, then there's no coming back. And she really wants to stop that. You've got big business, agro, food, certain types of high on the food chain, food production pitted against indigenous issues. It's very complex. What I really appreciated about the Minister of the Environment's approach is not only is she concerned about the way in which a business is pitted against environment and stopping that and addressing it, but she also is broad enough to realize and acknowledge that it's interconnected with this huge gap. So she talked about putting a tax on the ultra-rich, using that money to address some of these issues with poverty. So she's taking an approach that sees the environmental issues interplaying with economics. They also are talking about the burning of fossil fuels, and that needs to end. So it's not just the rainforest, it's also about these other issues that can't be just not commented on.
A contribuição das religiões para
The contribution of religions to facing the crises we are experiencing cannot be treated with indifference by the 20 richest economies in the world, which hold 80% of the financial resources and 80% of the CO2 emissions.
80% das emissões de CO2. É fundamental que aquilo que a gente diz.
It is essential that what we say is compatible with what we do. In the book of Genesis, he makes it very clear in chapter 2, verse 15, that God put man in the garden to cultivate and keep it. If we are going to cultivate, we have to take care.
Se a gente vai cultivar, a gente tem que cuidar.
I'm a Baha'i, and from the Baha'i perspective, it's really very interesting to see how the spiritual nature and the material perspective they integrate and they help each other to advance. I really see that when there are protagonists in the grassroots and they genuinely want to make a change, there is a twofold moral purpose happening at the same time. One is for their own internal transformation. And the other one is with the tools that they learn from working with the grassroots, they can assist and support for the community to advance. And within this process, the more we learn from different villages, islands, localities, countries, in an international sphere, we learn what has worked, and then we can adjust approaches, because it is really by understanding the reality of that specific location that we can really try to effectively find solutions to tackle the issues. I was born and raised in this country, in Brazil, so I lived in the global south, and for the half of my life, I have been living in the global north. So I can actually say that there are so many specific aspects that need to be tackled. One of them is shifting from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And the other one is about really the empowerment of women and how women and girls can make such a huge contribution with capacity building, with training, with certain levels of empowerment, of thought leadership. So I think that the connection of different areas can really help for the rainforest not to be left aside. So everyone can have a role to help, because it's not only about the rainforest, it's about everything else that's happening around the world as a whole. The world is one country and mankind its citizens. If one single element of the system is in pain or is ill, the whole body suffers for it. And that is the condition that we see the world at this day and age. A condition that humanity has gone through its infancy, has gone through its adolescence, and at this moment we're going through the pains of adolescence. We're going through the pains of changes that sometimes are not good, and sometimes they are great, but it's changes that many times we can lose our perspective of what's going to come next. But the reality is that this is an evolution, and we need to think that this is towards the maturity of humanity. So we really have to see as a long-term vision and not be only focused on where we are at the moment. So really, we're interconnected.
We have made an effort to lead by example here in Brazil, in this first year of government, in which I took over the Ministry of the Environment. We have already achieved, in 2023, a reduction in deforestation by 50% this year, in first 6 months of 45%. We also resumed the creation of conservation and protection units for indigenous peoples.
From Brazil's Amazon to the global stage, the urgency of rainforest conservation echoes in every voice we've heard. It's a call that transcends borders, cultures, and beliefs, a reminder that we are all interconnected in this struggle. As we face the climate crisis, let's draw inspiration from these diverse perspectives and turn words into action. The planet is protected by individuals practicing mindful consumption and policymakers seriously considering the Earth's long-term needs.